Hey, hello. This is the follow-up to our nationalism video. Today we're only going to talk about one country, Filipina. Personally, my favorite country, but not the one that's going to come out in the exam, like most likely on your essays, but it is my favorite country. So let's talk about Filipina. This is 2.4 and we're talking about nationalism di Asia Tenggara. Following the timeline, we started from Barat with our England, Amerika, dan Perancis. Then kita teruskan dengan negara-negara Asia which had three types penjajahan which happened in England. Then we had pemerintahan raja which happened with our Jepun dan China. Then mempertahankan agama Islam which happened with Empire Uthmaniyah dan Mesir. This is a follow-up with nationalism di Asia Tenggara. Even though that for Asia, the four countries we learned, there's actually 5 places. The 5 things we learned, 5 countries we learned, we had only penjajahan. Only one country was for penjajahan, which was for India. However, when you learn nationalism di Asia Tenggara, which is focusing on Southeast Asia, alright, so like Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, Filipina, Vietnam, Myanmar, we're all focusing on penjajahan. So that is the first main aspect, because there are 5 countries in the subtopic and all 4 countries go in the category of penjajahan. Meanwhile, the special one here that I haven't read is Thailand, because Thailand is one of the few countries that have never been colonized by anyone else before. So this is an interesting story to learn. You should look out for this. Let's talk Filipina. Number 1. When we talk about Filipina, we need to know the penjajahan. Who was PMO? That's always how we start, right? Who was PMO? Number 1, we have to know that who was penjajahan. Siapa yang merupakan penjajah di Filipina, which is your Spanyol, your Spanish. Okay, they approximately took over the Philippines for more than 300 years, a very long time. So first of all, we have 2 peringkats you can understand. There are 3 main people you need to know. The first one, my goat. This is, I'm not going to write his name in red. Look out at your textbook, muka surat 28. This is your José Rizal. My name, Jonathan Rizal, comes from this guy. So this is my role model. So let's learn about him, shall we? José Rizal. Okay, so nasionalisme di Filipina bermula dengan gerakan propaganda. Propaganda can be misunderstood a lot of times, but it's just any kind of belief, literature, ideas relating about the government and all that stuff is under propaganda. So gerakan propaganda is a movement where you're trying to change the political ideas of the Philippines. So why menuntut Filipina dijadikan sebahagian daripada Sepanyol? The first original idea was that the Philippines should be a part of Sepanyol because they have been colonized for that long. Number 2, so that first one, menuntut, they were asking 要求, they were requesting, bringing their idea up forward that Filipina merupakan sebahagian Sepanyol. Number 2, hak yang sama seperti bangsa Sepanyol, that the people of the Philippines had the same rights, hak yang sama, with the people who were born Spanish, the Spanish people. So who was the one who started this? The idea comes from a lot of José Rizal's novels, right? We don't learn them, but you can know he wrote 2 novels which happened to kickstart the entire revolution. So this man is essentially the GOAT here. He's our national hero. Okay, he's not a king, so maybe I'll put a heart to know that he's the king of my heart. So José Rizal created Liga Filipina, the League of the Philippines, dan mendesak force Sepanyol melakukan perubahan politik, ekonomi dan sosial. When we talk about perubahan, especially for nationalism, there's always 3 aspects. Alright, we even learned this for our own country, Tanah Melayu, Malaysia, which is with your first politik, then your social, then finally your economy. It always comes back to these 3. So that is the purpose of the Liga Filipina. Alright, so you can know the difference that the beginning with José Rizal, they were saying not kemerdekaan, but rather to be a part of Sepanyol, to have the same rights. Why? To understand that some people might think this is quite shallow, it is purely because the Philippines has been colonized by the Spanish for way too long, for hundreds and hundreds of years, that the act of Spanish being in the Philippines has become the natural instinct. It is they're not used to what it's like to be free from colonization. Thus, you cannot judge them like this. So that is the first, we would say, peringkat awal. Then we move on to our next two people, unlocking two new characters. Okay, so number one, perkembangan nasionalisme. Alright, so gerakan propaganda gagal mencetuskan idea nasionalisme radikal, meaning the gerakan of propaganda to move the political ideas failed. You might be thinking, why did they fail? They don't tell you in the textbook. Here's what happened. The JOSÉ Rizal, who was mostly kind of the kickstarter of everything, was exiled after allegedly carrying anti-Christian pamphlets. It's a big deal. Go find out about it yourself. But he was exiled over to a land called Dapitungan, all the way in the Philippines, still in the Philippines, but far away from the capital, Manila. Thus, with no one with their main supporter gone, people who were still part of this gerakan propaganda were most likely arrested. Thus, the whole gerakan failed. So came mencetuskan idea nasionalisme radikal. They were going even more braver, even more bolder ideas. What happened? Our first lad here, I'm gonna put a B here, his full name is Andres Bonifacio. Menubuhkan Katipunan. Katipunan is his little group. And what this group did, well, there were three things. Number one, memperoleh kemerdekaan melalui revolusi. After seeing that it failed for Filipina to be a part of the Spanish, and the Spanish people did not like that, Sepanyol, right? Not agreeing to that. Bonifacio and his people in the Katipunan, they were like, hey, maybe we should just have our own independence. Thus memperoleh kemerdekaan melalui revolusi. So number two, what else was the Katipunan for? Menggunakan akhbar kalayan menyebarkan idea revolusi. They were trying to use the Katipunan, right? They had their own akhbar, their own kind of newspaper, news outlet talking about ideas of revolutions. Number three, Revolusi Filipina menyingkirkan pemerintahan Sepanyol gagal. That means the idea was that they were going to overthrow the rule of the Spanish. Pemerintah Sepanyol gagal. Again, the textbook is a breezing through. They don't tell you why. I can tell you why. Bonifacio, why did they fail? Because Bonifacio led his people on into actual war, like an actual revolution. But the thing is, why did he do that? Because the news outlet, they were having all these akhbar, right? The akhbar kalayan, they were arrested by the Spanish, by alleged, some people who were like a few, not spies, a few betrayers, we say traitors, let loose about where this akhbar is spread in, and thus they were whipped and tortured, a lot of them tortured to death. Thus, Andres Bonifacio was very, very mad about this, led his revolution, but Andres Bonifacio is amazing in many ways, just not as a general leader, as a strategic military leader, thus gagal. Then comes our third character, who was Aguinaldo, aka, we can say, his full name is Emilio Aguinaldo. Now, by the way, these three men, they all existed in the same timeline, by the way. Andres Bonifacio's group was directly a result of the whole gerakan propaganda led by José Rizal. So, Emilio Aguinaldo, on the other hand, pada masa yang sama, he actually disagreed with Andres Bonifacio. So, what did he think? Emilio Aguinaldo bekerja sama dengan Amerika Syarikat. Again, it's a very big breakthrough, but in their idea that Sepanyol, they were enemies, the Spanish, with Amerika Syarikat. And thus, Aguinaldo had a whole, we can say perjanjian. Do they mention it here? No, we just say bekerja sama. They worked together with Amerika Syarikat so that they could kick out, they could 吹走, they could get rid, chase away Sepanyol from their country. This was a big absolute fail, because guess what? In the defense, even though Sepanyol and Amerika Syarikat were enemies, they were not friends with each other, but they were both from the West, Barat. Alright, and looking at this, Asia Tenggara, they were gonna work with people from a different continent. They were like, hey, we're bros, we're Westerner bros. And thus, what happened? Kemerdekaan, referring to kemerdekaan Filipina, berjaya tak? Tak berjaya. kemerdekaan diisytiharkan tidak diiktiraf daripada Amerika Syarikat. The Americans did not acknowledge or recognize the independence of Filipina. Thus, Filipina pula di bawah penjajahan siapa? Not the Spanish anymore, Amerika Syarikat. Ya, big fail. Di bawah penguasaan Amerika Syarikat, golongan nasionalis ini mengubah strategi untuk buat apa? Mengubah strategi dengan menggunakan saluran diplomasi melalui parti politik sederhana. Meaning that after these three attempts failed, one, gerakan propaganda failed, the punya akhbar katipunan, the akhbar kalayan failed, and Andres Bonifacio himself failing because, trusted the wrong people, thus led to the people thinking that we should go back. It's essentially a going back to José Rizal's first idea, which was being more diplomatic instead of going out with straight war and relying on other powers. We can see this as a reflection for Form 2, where we learned about Johor and the Johor Portuguese and Aceh, where the Johor trusted the Belanda that they would get Malacca back. And we all know the story that yes, with the help of Belanda, we did get Malacca back. But Malacca was still not in the hands of Johor, but rather the hands of Belanda, the Netherlands. So the main thing, they can ask you about a nilai. What can you learn from this? To not trust kuasa asing, not trust Amerika Syarikat. Looking back on your Form 2, do not trust the Belanda, trust yourself. So what did the people do? Golongan nationalists, there were still people who believed, because these people, these tokos, although you might think they're funny, they failed, they did work hard, and they did manage to inspire the people of the Philippines. So they were still golongan nationalists, mengubah strategi perjuangan. They changed their strategy to fight for the nationalism. How? Dengan diplomasi. Right, melalui parti politik sederhana, having political parties. We know about party politics, how they succeeded, right, all the way in India. They had the INC, the Indian National Congress. Think about it. So, who is an important character here, we can say? There's another man here. I'm going to put him on the side because he is alright. We don't usually mention him that much, but this is Sergio Osmena, merupakan pemimpin parti nasionalis yang menganggotai Dewan Perhimpunan. They went for meetings and such. Sergio Osmena. Alright, that is pretty much it. So what happened at the end with three fails and finally coming back to diplomacy? Well, kejayaannya Filipina berjaya menuntut kemerdekaan ini diteruskan oleh golongan nasionalis sehingga Perang Dunia Kedua. Right, so over here you can say berjaya menuntut kemerdekaan hanya selepas Perang Dunia Kedua. This is exactly the same with many countries we see. Like Tanah Melayu, for example, it's the same. We only got our independence after the Japanese left and the British came back and we fought back. World War II. After World War II, same for India. World War II was a horrible thing, but they did allow a lot of countries to have their own independence. That is one thing I can say about World War II regarding to nationalism. So, looking over the textbook, they say, alright, Dewan Perhimpunan Nasionalis, okay, pada tahun 1907, gerakan menuntut kemerdekaan ini diteruskan oleh golongan nasionalis sehingga Perang Dunia Kedua. Guess what? The Philippines, are they still connected to Spanish? Absolutely not. They are now their own country. So we can say that they did berjaya. Okay? Give you a quick running. Filipina, bawah penjajahan Spanyol. What did they do? Started with gerakan propaganda. Then we had José Rizal menubuhkan Liga Filipina. Then this one gagal. We know the outsider reason that they don't tell you in the textbook was he was exiled. But this left the golongan nasionalis untuk mencetuskan idea nasionalisme radikal that was later led Andres Bonifacio menubuhkan Katipunan dan menggunakan akhbar kayan. Again, they don't tell you this in the textbook, but they were captured, tortured, they led their attack, failed, then came arrested. Then came Andres Bonifacio, who showed up and was, he was very much against both Amelia Aguinaldo was very much against Bonifacio, and we can say José Rizal. He was a bit of an odd one here, but he stood out. So Emilio Aguinaldo bekerjasama dengan Amerika Syarikat untuk mengusir Sepanyol. Did it work? Absolutely not. Amerika did not mengiktirafkan kemerdekaan Filipina. Then finally, after all of this, they came back to the rational idea, diplomasi. But oh wait, Sergio Osmena. But in the end, when did we get this independence? Selepas Perang Dunia Kedua. And that is it for Nasionalisme Filipina. Not too much. Go into a read through. You might see this possibly in your structures, even your essays if they really want to test on it. Alright, that is all. My name is JOSÉ Rizal. I will see you for the next country, Burma, or we now know this as Myanmar.